Got a strong-willed boy who is constantly testing limits? I had one of those. All right, maybe a few of them. It's not unusual. I have to tell you a story. It now is a story that makes me laugh, but oh my goodness, it did not make me laugh back in the day. I had a friend, and we had boys at the exact same time, so they were the same age, a few months apart, and occasionally we would go to the park. And I remember this one time that it was obvious that both of them needed a diaper change. It smelled horrible. And so we called them over. Hey, you guys, come change your diaper. Well, her boy came over, laid on the changing pad that she had spread out on the grass, and lifted his two legs up. Not a peep. My boy ran the other way. And then when I finally corralled him and got him back, and got him not exactly on the changing pad, but close enough, head on the grass, butt on the changing pad, it was just a constant, squirmy war, and it was all I could do to not get poop all over the place. So, all that to say, some kids are more strong-willed than others, and that's normal. Not your fault. I think a lot of it just comes in their DNA. That said, it can feel overwhelming, and in this video, I hope to calm you and take away some of that overwhelm by teaching you how to use limits in a really effective way with our strong-willed boys. So let's go. So, like you can tell from my story, strong-willed kids do require different strategies than the kids who are just going to lay on the changing pad and lift their feet. That said, it's really important for us to change our mindset around limits so that we're not thinking of them as punishment, because they're not punishment. Limits are actually a tool that provides safety and guidance. You might be sitting here going, okay, Tasha, I get that in theory, but in practice, how can I do that? The first thing that I want you to think about is aligning your limits with your values. One thing that I find a lot when I'm talking to parents is there are a lot of shoulds running around. He should be in bed by 8 o'clock. He should eat more vegetables. He should be able to do his homework by himself. Whatever it is, shoulds are always a warning sign, in my opinion, which is what I'm giving you here. The truth is, there is no one right way to parent. There is no one right limit to set. Obviously, if your kid's about to run into the street, you're going to hold that limit and you're going to stop him. Safety limits are one thing, but most limits that we have questions about are not safety limits, right? People aren't coming to me and saying, oh my God, I don't know what to do. My kid is trying to run out in the street and I don't know if I should let him run or not let him run, right? Of course you don't let him run. You do whatever you have to do to keep him safe. Most of the questions are about things that there is no one right answer to. So I want to give you permission to do things your way. What are the values around tech in your family? I have worked with families who have unlimited technology for their kids and it works fine. I have worked with families who have unlimited tech on a certain day and no tech the rest of the days. I have worked with families who allow a certain amount of time on tech each day. There's no one right way to do it, but in order to be successful at setting limits, you need to be clear about what your values around the particular thing, in this case tech, are. This is true with food, with sugar, with bedtimes, with schoolwork, all of these things. Really, there's no one right way. Another way to stop thinking about limits as punishment is to think about them more like a guardrail on a freeway, right? So they're there to keep your kids safe, kind of keep them within the boundaries. They don't need to be so tight so that your kid's in a straitjacket, but you don't want your kid falling over the cliff. So there's something that actually helps your child. And sometimes we use limits to help our child reach their potential. In other words, holding limits, for example, that they participate in something that they have made really clear over time that they want to participate in, and then fear comes up when the time actually comes to go. And we use limits to encourage them to move towards participation and towards not letting fear get in the way of them reaching their potential. I will make another video about that another time. That's a whole different subject. there's usually a lot more space within our limit that we want to set than sometimes we're aware of. I'm not sure if that exactly makes sense, but let me tell a story and maybe it'll make it a little bit more clear. I remember when one of my kids was, I want to say middle schoolish age, like 6th grade-ish, and he had some reading that he needed to do for homework. And he came in and he was really upset after school. He didn't know how to read the book. He didn't want to answer the questions. He didn't know how to write the thing. He hated homework. He hated school. He crumpled his paper from school into a ball and just threw it on the ground. Now, I had 2 other kids there too, and I was just kind of going like, oh my gosh, what do I need to do here? What do I need to do here? You know, let me find peace. Let me find calm. Let me not yell. And I did take a moment. I didn't react. And I said to him, sweet boy, you need to do your homework. Now, in my mind, I knew that I wasn't going to force him to do it right this moment, but it was clear to me that it made sense for him to be able to do it, that I knew that he had the capabilities to do it, but that he was just upset for whatever reason he was upset, and that needed to come out. And so I said again, hey, sweet boy, you're gonna have to do your homework. And he got upset. He kept throwing his paper and picking it up and throwing it around the room and yelling at me and I'm a horrible mom and all of the things. And eventually he was able to cry and tell me all of his frustrations about not understanding in class and his teacher not calling on him and all of the different things. In the end, fast forward, I don't know, I want to say like 20 minutes or so, he kind of calmed and I let things go. I didn't say, you have to do this right now. I went and tended to my other kids. And when I came back, he was on his bunk bed reading. I kind of didn't say anything. I just kind of let it go. And then maybe a half an hour later, he was sitting at the table, uncrumpling his paper and filling in the spaces or whatever it was that needed doing. All this to say, I made the decision that it was important for him to do his homework. I held that limit, but I didn't hold it so tight. It was more like a guardrail, right? I didn't hold it so tight that it created a huge, gigantic eruption and a break in our relationship. I didn't yell or get upset or anything like that. I just held it such that he could have his feelings and make his way back to the ability to do the work. So you can see how it's more like there's space within those guardrails. It's not like a tight noose that I'm holding. If you, like me, have a boy who tends to explode when you throw a limit his way, I want to encourage you to grab the first 5 words by clicking on the link. I will tell you exactly what you need to say right when he explodes and then what you need to do next. I want to explain now what our 3-step limit setting system looks like. Now, there was a prelude to it, which I mentioned earlier, which is, what are your values? What limit do you want to set? In the story that I just shared with you, my values were, he needs to do his homework. Your values don't have to be that. Your values could be, you know what? I don't think kids need to be doing homework. I'm not going to fight this fight. It's not important to me. That's fine. Whatever it is, just be clear about your values because there will be pushback and it's really hard to hold our ground when we're questioning ourselves. So what are those 3 steps? So the first one is listen. And that listen is about listening to yourself, listening to the environment, listening to the state of your sweet boy. Is he hungry? Is he tired? Is there a quick fix? Would a snack kind of fix the mood and maybe we can avoid a big upset? Maybe we don't need like a firm limit around something. Am I in good enough emotional shape to be able to calmly listen to any feelings and upsets that come up if I do set the limit? Because if not, I would much rather you let the thing go, even if, let's say homework is your thing. I'd rather you not hold the line around the homework if you know that you're exhausted, you were up all night with a baby, or you just had a fight with your boss or your partner, and you're on edge. And if your sweet boy has a big reaction to the ask to do his homework or the reminder to do his homework, you're going to have an even bigger explosion and feel badly about how you behave. I'd rather you just let it go. So the first listen is really about how resourced are you to be able to handle an upset? Is there a quick fix that you could do that would kind of prevent the upset? Another thing to really pay attention to is whether or not you're stressed for time. I've noticed over the decades of doing this work that when we are pressed for time, like we're trying to get to school in the morning or to a doctor's appointment, that we tend to have less patience. So that might be a situation where you let a limit go. You just don't die on that hill. Another situation that you might want to take a break from limit setting around is when you're being watched. We tend to not do well there either. So that could be in public, like at a playground or pick up from school or something like that. It could be in your own home if you have family or friends visiting. Now, as you feel more comfortable using these connection-based tools and as your confidence grows, I can assure you, you're not going to care who's watching or if you're late for school. But to start out, I want you to just honor where you are and not push it. So that's that first listen. Kind of, am I going to do this? Do I want to set a limit here? The second step is actually bringing the limit. And by bringing the limit, I don't mean saying the limit. I don't mean asking for what you would like to have happen. I mean stating whatever it is that needs to happen and then doing whatever needs to happen in order to make sure the thing happens. That's a lot of happening, but you know what I mean? Let's say your kids are fighting over a toy. You didn't see what happened. You go in, and because one is usually the aggressor and one is usually the victim, you go at the aggressor and you say, "Hey, give him his toy back." Instead of doing that, you're going to move in, you're going to put yourself between them so that they're not grabbing from one another, and you're going to say, "Sorry I didn't get here in time to help." The truth is, you don't know what happened. They will work you. You don't know what happened. You don't know who had it first. You don't know if one child provoked the other. You don't know anything. All you know is that you have a child who's upset saying that the other child stole their toy. And the other child who stole the toy might be laughing, he might be arguing, I don't know what he's doing. But you have two kids who are not in what I would call their right minds. And so your job in that moment is not to play Sherlock Holmes and figure out who done it. Your job in that moment is to help each of them feel connected to you and to one another so that they can cooperate with each other and figure out how to resolve the problem. They probably won't figure it out on their own, but with your help they can. Bringing the limit might be going to the child first who doesn't have the toy and who is very upset and sitting with him and saying, "I'm so sorry I wasn't here to see what happened. I'll help you wait." And being able to just stay and listen to whatever upset he's having. Again, you weren't there, you don't know who started it, what happened, and you're never going to get an accurate picture of that, so I wouldn't go in that direction. Instead, take the opportunity to help him heal. Just listen. The other one's off playing. Eventually, he will get tired of playing with that toy and either leave it on the ground somewhere, at which point the other child could play with it, or maybe he will come and give it back when he's ready. Simple. That's it. Maybe instead of going to the one who's upset, if you see he's not hurt, you could go to the other child. And if that child's running around with the toy, it might turn into a playful limit. So it might be, "Do you know what happens to little boys who steal toys from their brother? They get their elbows licked," and then you run after him and you desperately try to get his elbow to lick. And what's happening here is he's laughing, you're laughing, even the other child might be laughing, but there's closeness building and there's a release of the tension happening, and you're helping him move closer to being able to share without forcing. Once things lighten up a bit, then you might just say something like, "Hey, I don't know what happened, but please hand over that toy to your brother when you're done playing with it." And you just let it be, and then you can go listen to the other child if he's still upset. But my point here is there's lots of ways to bring the limit, but it's not about saying it. It's about actually physically interacting with your kids And if you're saying something, it's just something very non-shaming and supportive. The last step of the 3 steps, listen, limit, and then listen. So the last step is another listen, but rather than, like the first one is listening to yourself and the environment and the state of the child, what you're doing with the last listen is implementing a tool that we write about in our book, Listen, called Stay Listening. There's a lot of listening going on here today. Stay listening is not rocket science. Like the name, what I'm asking you to do is to stay and listen. Not to try to fix, convince him to feel differently, not to try to quiet his feelings so that they go away. Just to stay, be loving, and listen. Also, by the way, it doesn't mean talk. You're not talking to him during stay listening. You're simply being present and showing your love by being there. So those are the 3 steps. Listen, limit, and listen. Children don't change overnight, and strong-willed children will probably grow into strong-willed adults. Yes, that's me. Anyway, that's not a bad thing, right? Strong-willed kids oftentimes do really well as adults, but they can be really challenging for us to parent. My hope is that if you can consistently hold loving limits when necessary, when it aligns with your values, when you're in good enough parenting shape to do so, that over time your child will grow into his ability to cooperate with ease. If you start to set limits in this way, if you start to remember in your body that this isn't about punishment, it's about guiding him and teaching him, you're going to have an amazing transformation in your relationship with your sweet boy. Instead of those day in and day out battles that create these rifts between you, you're going to seize each of these off-track behaviors as opportunities to build connection between you. And I think you're going to find that the results are amazing. Now that you understand how to effectively set loving limits, I want to go more deeply into gaining cooperation. So click on the video on your screen and let's do it.